It's a great pleasure to be here with you today, and really an honor to be in Beijing and to go down to Jinan tomorrow to speak about a topic that I hope will appeal to you as citizens in China and as citizens of the world. The topic, as James said, is on the Declaration of Independence, and it's both a talk tonight about the making of that document, but also about the remaking of that document, because I think the text that we read today is not, even though it is word for word the same text that that was put together in the late 18th century, and I'm trying to account for that in this particular talk. In America's revolutionary history, no document is more iconic than the Declaration of Independence, the short but sweeping statement issued by the Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776, severing bonds with Britain and launching the colonies, the American colonies, on their path to independence. But what does the Declaration actually declare? For most Americans today, the answer is embodied in the opening sentence of the second paragraph, which you see up on these screens. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life and the pursuit of happiness. Perhaps no sentence in American history is better or greater than these powerful words about equality and rights. It is no wonder then that school children in the United States memorize this sentence, or that adults consider it the founding creed of America's civil religion. It is also unremarkable that the sentence played a background role, quite literally, in the recent presidential and vice presidential debates. It served as the wallpaper on the blue screen behind both candidates for all of the debates. During the March on Washington in 1963, almost 50 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. recited those words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident," and said it was time for the nation to make good on this promissory note and to rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. 100 years earlier, that is, almost 150 years ago, in his Gettysburg Address in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln insisted that the nation had been founded upon the proposition that all men are created equal. But in 1776, that's not how most Americans would have seen their declaration. The entirety of the now famous second paragraph was little more than a minor premise in the argument over independence, historian David Armitage observed in his recent study of the Declaration's original meaning and global history. Americans at the time rarely discussed these words, the words that we hold these truths to be self-evident, instead focusing on the long list of charges against King George III that dominated the body of the text, or the bold capital letters in the document's final section declaring that the colonies are to be free and independent states. That's the only capitalization in the entire document. So the questions I want to raise with you tonight in my talk are these. Why did we come to focus on the message that we did? How and when did Americans turn a diplomatic severance note into a declaration of individual rights and a philosophical statement about the natural equality of all people? With the help of newly digitized 18th century American newspapers and other publications, we can now more precisely trace how people wrote the Declaration in its own time, or wrote about the Declaration in its own time, and can begin to tell a more nuanced story about how, and more particularly who, gave us the Declaration that Americans now celebrate.